Tuesday, I was agreeing with you. November 10th, advanced class, we were going to finish Landlady and see just how memorable this story is. Let's see. No, he can't save you today. With the bell work going into it, we have confusing background. This should be in the notebook on the right-hand side. You're going to have 2 confusing statements and then 2 background statements that will connect to your book report book in some way. We're going to do just a couple of examples to sort of see what your thoughts are. We'll do the confusing ones first and to see what you have from there. Rinley, what do you have for one of your confusing statements?
How does Mark know all these chemical compositions by heart?
Ooh, that would work for me. Nicely done. Riley.
Why did Andre make fun of Owen and talk to him later nicely?
That would be a good quirk. Carmona.
Why did Armpit help his friend when he's been mean to him?
That'd be perfect. All of those work as confusing statements. Aaliyah.
I put how did the sensor surgically remove memories?
Ooh, yeah, that'd be good too. And then let's go to background knowledge, where you're going to connect your book to your life in some way. Johnny.
The way that Thomas felt when he came up the elevator is how I felt when I started at middle school.
That would be full of confidence and vigor. Not so much.
Lost, don't know where you are, and vomiting. Terrified.
Yes.
What did I?
Covers most of us. McKay! What's your background? No background yet?
Nope.
We'll give you a chance. Go ahead and stand until you come up with one, and let me know when we sit back down. And McKenna.
Why me?
Why not you?
Because you pick on me all the time.
That's not a background thing.
You just said
Yeah, you have to do a background thing.
I know.
Picking on you. Wait, is that in the book?
no.
That's not background yet.
I have it.
Oh, okay, just checking. I was just picking on you more.
Okay. Miranda used to dislike her name, and when I was younger, I didn't like my name either.
That would work very well. Nicely done. Malia!
That's you.
I know it's me. For the background,
Yes, just one.
Nikki wants a dog and I want a fish.
So a pet.
Yeah.
Because dogs and fish might be slightly different, but I like you're going with that.
You got one.
McKay!
I'm almost done.
Almost done. All right, we'll buy you time. Wash!
Yes.
Hi!
Hello.
What do you have for your background?
Okay. I have multiple siblings and my brother is the only boy.
Just like in the story.
Except, like, they only have, the sister is the only girl in their family.
And then the one boy. Wilson. I'm with you now.
So it's like switched.
Gotcha. I'm with you now. And Aaliyah!
I put while reading the story, Seraphina called herself designated dragon prodder. Sometimes when 2 of my friends fight, I'm designated friend prodder. Like I have to get them to talk to each other.
Oh, okay. I thought you were just like poking friends. I didn't say issue. McKay!
The way Harry felt when Ron left him was like how I felt when my friend left me with her creepy mother.
Wow. Wow, there's our best. Nice enough, McKay.
That's the best
All right.
one.
Then as long as you have your 4 done, you can put those to the side and we're done with that. If you're still working on it, you can continue writing that. Then for the story, download the story from there. We did irony. What is foreshadowing again? Because we're going to definitely need that one today to help us out. Ali?
Clues in the story to help you predict the ending.
And we're definitely going to need those for today's story to help predict our ending. And then we got to the Trilby hat. Cole, who is wearing the Trilby hat in the story? Nice. So then we have Jimmy wearing the, is it not Jimmy? Billy. Yes. I was like, Jimmy. I know, we had so many Jimmys last week. Billy, who's wearing it. And then so far, Zanaya, how old is Billy? 17. And then we went to, what country is our story taking place in, Jackal?
England?
England, nice ones. They have the London and Reading and Bath. And he's there for business. And let's see, oh, where is it he's supposed to be going to stay, Keely?
Is it called Bell Dragon or the Dragon Bell?
Bell and Dragon.
The Bell and Dragon.
You missed the and, yes. Conjunctions. And so going to the Bell and Dragon. But Kelly, on his way to the Bell and Dragon, what does he find?
A bed and breakfast.
Nice done. A bed and breakfast where you get the chance to stay. And who runs this particular bed and breakfast, Nick?
The creepy lady.
landlady would have been fine, but sure, the creepy lady seems a bit much for all we know. And remember, she's not old because she's just a little bit older than me. But she's old enough to apparently be creepy for you guys. But maybe it's just I'm not good at reading women's voices, so maybe that's just what comes across.
Just make her sound like Venom.
Let's back up. Then, what makes you feel that she's so creepy so far, since we're feeling the need to attack this poor lady who's just opening up her house for people to stay there? Pew pew.
I just wanted to say that you sound like the character from Powerpuff Girls that looks like the devil but talks like really, really high pitched.
I do like that character, but that's not helping us with the lady. Catton.
I was thinking like maybe the Bell and Dragon's like the bell is like the doorbell, and maybe she's a dragon.
That is a bit of a reach, but I do believe the Bell and Dragon is an actual place to stay. Not her place is not the Bell and Dragon, but I do like where you're going with that. It seems a bit severe. So in other words, you guys can't put into words what makes her feel so creepy to you. You're just like, we just like attacking old people. Older people. Mo?
It's just like what she says.
What? You can stay here and I'll make it cheap?
Yes, and well, not that, but like when
The
they're
way
walking
she
up the
says it.
stairs, and she's like, "I'm waiting for the people that like are perfect," and then she's like, "Just like you."
So it's a compliment. She's
Thank
saying
you.
that you're a perfect person.
No,
No.
scary.
I know.
I want some random lady's house I just walked into saying.
Jay Blanc?
She makes it very clear that nobody else stays there.
Yeah.
And she's like, this floor is like all yours.
No one else is currently staying there, correct?
stayed there in like 3 years.
Well,
Well, she says she's been waiting. That means that nobody stayed there in a long time.
right, because you don't want to have random creepers there, so she's like, I try to keep it available for the right people.
But
Man,
the
you guys are
creeper
haters.
lives there.
She's the
Stop
Grinling?
making her sound like a good person.
She has the one first floor to herself. She just hides dead bodies there.
Yeah, it has a knife.
Combs?
The fact that like he rang the doorbell and
Uh-huh.
before he even finished, she was there at the door.
Yeah.
And how
That's kind of like.
how he asked, I was wondering if I could have a room. She's like, it's all ready for you.
She might be bored and was looking out the window. You ever had that awkward moment when you're looking out the window, the front door, and like someone walks up and you're like, oh, this is awkward.
No,
I'm already
don't come to
Yeah.
me.
That's never happened.
Ever.
Don't try to make us look like a good person.
No, that's happened to me.
Well, let's jump into the story to find out. Yes, I'm
No, I have something. I have a
We got-
prediction.
I know where we are. I have a prediction.
prediction.
Okay, so I think it's a ghost town because, okay, he's only talked to the porter and this old lady.
Because what's the weather like?
I have no idea.
It's cold.
Super cold and rainy outside.
I'm always out when it's super cold and rainy.
It explains a lot. So we're down to the second page, and this is where he was now just walking up the stairs with her, and they were going on from there. All right, so it's, where it says they climbed up a second flight, and we'll start there. Once again, to bring you happiness, I'll do the girls' parts, and have you guys do the other parts.
Oh, please.
You know, to make it memorable. All right, Johnny, from there. They climbed. Second page, second column.
First column.
First column, it's like the second column, but less.
The second paragraph.
Second paragraph, I was going for
Okay.
words.
They climbed up a second flight,
And this one is all yours.
she said.
Here's your room. I do hope you'll like it.
She took him into a small but charming front bedroom, switching on the light as she went in.
Hang on, real quick, I forgot. We also have a dachshund, and where do we have a dachshund in the story?
In front of the fireplace.
There you go, sleeping in front of the fireplace. She can take care of pets, because if you remember,
It's dead.
oh my goodness, you guys are wrong.
Wow.
So, not only,
It is dead.
How do we do with breathing?
it's a dog. One, there's a dog in there. There's another pet sitting in there. What's the other? A parrot.
They can be
It
stuffed.
rings the doorbell, the
They can be
dog's like
stuffed.
bark, bark.
Yeah.
The morning sun comes right in the window, Mr. Perkins. It is Mr. Perkins, isn't it?
No, he said, it's Weaver.
Mr. Weaver, how nice. I put a hot water bottle between the sheets to air them out, Mr. Weaver. It's such a comfort to have a heated bottle and a strange bed with clean sheets. Don't you agree? And you may light the gas fire at any time if you feel chilly.
Thank you, Billy said.
Pause for a second. The hot water bottle is back before they had heat throughout a house.
Oh, I have one of those.
They had these big hot. What you do is you boil water on the stove and then dump it into this giant rubber like balloon, and then you'd seal the end of it, and then you'd put it between the sheets of your bed, and it would radiate heat. And then that way, we didn't have electric blankets back because this was taking place shortly after World War II. And you could sort of lay in bed, and you would have like a warm, toasty bed area.
That sounds amazing.
And so, right? So she's trying to be nice. She's already got the warm, the bed thing going and stuff like that. So it's all good. You'll have to wait on your issues. So you guys can take forever. All right, Johnny, keep going.
I have a question that like she already had it warm. That means she.
There's a
made that
chance if we keep reading, we'll find out more information. I've heard reading brings education. Thank you ever so much.
Thank you, Billy said. Thank you ever so much. He noticed the bedspread had been taken off the bed, and the sheets had been neatly turned on one side, all ready for someone to get in.
I'm so glad you appeared.
She said, looking
Earnestly, honestly.
into his face.
I was beginning to get worried.
That's all right, Billy answered brightly. You mustn't worry about me. He put his suitcase on the chair and started to open it.
And what about supper, my dear? Did you manage to get anything to eat before you came here?
I'm not a bit hungry, thank you, he said. I think I'll just go to bed as soon as possible because tomorrow I've got to get up rather early and report to the office.
Very well, then. I'll leave you now so that you can unpack. But before you go to bed, would you be kind enough to pop into the sitting room on the ground floor and sign the book? Everyone has to do that because it's the law of the land, and we don't want to go breaking any laws at this stage in the proceedings, do we?
She gave him a little wave of the hand and went quickly out of the room and closed the door.
When she wants him to sign the book, that's the register where you keep track of who's staying at a place. Because for paying taxes and stuff like that, you have to keep a log of who all stays at your place. And that way you pay taxes on it. So she's like, we don't want to break the law because breaking the law is bad. Because she follows the law. Knigan,
Killing everyone.
let her spend her points by talking.
Oh, come on, I just forgot what I was going to say.
Crack, you ready to go from there?
We're on the second call.
Yes, the one I kept predicting. Now the fact.
Now the fact that his landlady appeared to be slightly off her rocker didn't worry Billy in the least.
By the way, that's an idiom. And what does that idiom mean if you're slightly off your rocker?
You're deranged.
You're insane.
It's a bit far, a bit on the loopy side. But it's fine. All right, keep going.
After all, she was not only harmless. There was no question about that. But she was also quite obviously a kind and generous soul.
Let's read that line again. I think it's an important line because you guys are attacking this poor lady.
Yes.
After all, she was not only harmless, no question about that, she was also quite obviously a kind and generous soul. Okay, keep going.
He guessed that she had probably lost a son in a war or something like that, and had never got over it. So a few minutes later, after unpacking his suitcase and washing his hands, he trotted downstairs to the ground floor and entered the living room. His landlady wasn't there, but the fire was glowing in the hearth, and the little dachshund was sleeping in front of it. The room was wonderfully warm and cozy. I'm a lucky fellow, he thought, rubbing his hands. This is a bit of all right. He found the guest book lying open on the piano, so he took out his pen and wrote down his name and address. There was only 2 other entries above on his page, and as one always does with guest books, he started to read them. One was Christopher
Mulholland. From Cardiff.
From Cardiff. The other was Gregory W. Temple from Bristol. That's funny, he thought suddenly. Christopher Mulholland. It rings a bell.
Now, unlike you guys, is Billy having any issues here? No, Billy seems quite happy. So it's just you guys are looking deep into all this. And so he's signing into the little register, and he recognizes the name Christopher Mulholland. When he's signing in, he recognizes that name. Can you take it?
I remember what I was going to say earlier.
Yes.
I think she might be a vampire because they don't talk about mirrors in this.
That's also true, they don't talk about dragons either. Aside from the one place, I guess, unicorns. Interesting. Adams, from there.
Now where on earth had he heard that rather unusual name before? Was he a boy at school? No. Was it one of his sister's numerous young men, perhaps, or a friend of his father's? No, it wasn't any of those. He glanced down again at the book. Christopher Mulholland, 231 Cathedral Road, Cardiff. Gregory W. Temple, 27 Sycamore Drive, Bristol. As a matter of fact, now he came to think of it, he wasn't at all sure that the second name didn't have almost as much of a familiar ring about it as the first. Gregory Temple, he said aloud, searching his memory. Christopher Mulholland.
Such charming boys.
A voice behind him answered, and he turned and saw his landlady sailing into the room with a large silver tea tray in her hands. She was holding it well out in front of her, and rather high up, as though the tray were a pair of reins on a frisky horse. That sound somehow familiar, he said.
They do? How interesting.
I'm almost positive I've heard those names before somewhere. Isn't that queer? Maybe it was in the newspapers. They weren't famous in any way, were they? I mean, famous cricketers or footballers or something like that.
Famous?
She said, setting the tea tray down on the low table in front of the soft sofa.
Oh, no, I don't think they were famous, but they were extraordinarily handsome, both of them. I can promise you that. They were tall and young and handsome, my dear, just exactly like you.
Once more, Billy glanced down at the book. Look here, he said, noticing the dates. This last entry is over 2 years old.
It is?
Yes, indeed, and Christopher Mulholland is nearly a year before that, more than 3 years ago.
Dear me.
She said, shaking her head and having a dainty little sigh.
I would never have thought it. How time does fly away from us all, doesn't it, Mr. Wilkins?
It's Weaver, Billy said. W-E-A-V-E-R.
Of course it is.
She cried, sitting down on the sofa.
How silly of me. I do apologize. In one ear and out the other. That's me, Mr. Weaver. Pause there for a second. When she walks in... when she walks in with the tea tray, Adam, read that description of how she walks in with that tea tray.
Here, wait, I gotta find it. There, she's
Santa Claus.
Go for it.
Such charming boys, a voice behind him answered, and he turned and saw his landlady sailing into the room with a large silver tea tray in her hands.
I don't have plastic teacups. I have to use these instead. But the way she walks in is interesting. So she has a tray with little teacups on it and stuff like that. And normally, I'm assuming when you walk in holding your tray like this. When she comes in, she holds them high up like you're having the reins of a horse.
Yes.
That's how she walks in carrying the tea tray. So she walks in and then sets it down. So, once again, sure that's not helping my argument, but the way she brings it in is at least queer. If we were to say that at the very least, it is a little odd. Mohammed from there. And when he talks about a cricketer, it's a sport in England, and when he talks to the footballer, or soccer, so he's trying to figure out, because what is it about the names that he sees in there?
They ring a bell.
Yeah, they seem very, very familiar to him in one way or another. And so we're going to talk about Dempsey and Tunney in a moment. Dempsey and Tunney were two boxers who were known for their fights all together. And he's also going to talk about Roosevelt and Churchill. And they're going to talk about Churchill and Roosevelt, who during World War II were the leaders in England and America. And so he's going to talk about these two groups in a second. Dempsey and Tunney, and then Roosevelt and Churchill. So I just wanted you guys to see that. All right, Mohammed, from there.
You know something? Billy said. Something that's really quite extraordinary about all this?
No, dear, I don't.
Well, you see both of these names, Mulholland and Temple, I not only seem to remember each of them separately, so to speak, but somehow or other, in some peculiar way, they both appear to be sort of connected together as well, as though they were both famous for the same sort of thing, if you see what I mean, like Dempsey and Tunney, for example, or Churchill and Roosevelt.
How amusing,
She said.
But come over here now, dear. sit down beside me on the sofa and I'll give you a nice cup of tea and a ginger biscuit before you go to bed.
You really shouldn't bother, Billy said. I didn't mean you to do anything like that. He stood by the piano, watching her as she fussed about with the cups and saucers. He noticed that she had a small, white, quickly moving hands and red fingernails.
Let's tell you.
Oh, I'm almost positive it was in the newspapers. I saw them, Billy said. I'll think of it in a second. I'm sure I will. There's nothing more tantalizing. There's nothing more tantalizing than a thing like this in which lingers just outside the borders of one's memories. He hated to give up. Now wait a minute, he said. Wait just a minute. Mulholland, Christopher Mulholland, wasn't that the name of Eton's schoolboy who was on a walking tour through the West Country, and then all of a sudden
Milk? Sugar?
Yes, please. And then all of a sudden
Eton schoolboy? Oh no, my dear, that can't possibly be right, because my Mr. Mulholland was certainly not an Eton schoolboy when he came to me. He was a Cambridge undergraduate. Come over here now and sit next to me and warm yourself in front of this lovely fire. Come on, your tea's all ready for you.
she patted the empty place beside her on the sofa, and she sat there smiling at Billy, waiting for him to come over.
And then I'll put part 2 on there after I get done reading it, but it's not there for a moment. So I'm going to read part 2 to you, and then it's almost over. He crossed the room slowly and sat down on the edge of the sofa. She placed his teacup on the table in front of him. There we are. How nice and cozy this is, isn't it? Billy started sipping his tea. She did the same. For half a minute or so, neither of them spoke, but Billy knew that she was looking at him. Her body was half turned towards him, and he could feel her eyes resting on his face, watching him over the rim of her teacup. Now and again, he caught a whiff of a peculiar smell that seemed to emanate directly from her person. It was not in the least unpleasant, and it reminded him, well, he wasn't quite sure what it reminded him of. Pickled walnuts? New leather? Or was it the corridors of a hospital? At length, she said, Mr. Mulholland was a great one for his tea. Never in my life have I seen anyone drink as much tea as dear, sweet Mr. Mulholland. Huh. I suppose he left fairly recently, Billy said. He was still puzzling his head about the 2 names. He was positive now that he'd seen them in the newspapers, in the headlines. Left? She said, arching her brows. My dear boy, he never left. He's still here. Mr. Temple's also here. They're on the 3rd floor. Both of them up there together. Billy set down his cup slowly on the table and stared at his landlady. She smiled back at him, and then she put out one of her white hands and patted him comfortingly on the knee. How old are you, my dear? 17. 17? That's the perfect age. Mr. Mulholland was also 17, but I think he was a trifle shorter than you are. In fact, I'm sure he was, and his teeth weren't quite so white. You have the most beautiful teeth, Mr. Weaver. Did you know that? They're not as good as they look, Billy said. They've got simply masses of fillings in them at the back. Mr. Temple, of course, was a little older, she said, ignoring his remark. He was actually 28, and yet I never would have guessed it if he hadn't told me. Never in my whole life. There wasn't a blemish on his entire body. A what? Billy said. His skin was just like a baby's. There was a pause. Billy picked up his teacup and took another sip of the tea. Then he set it down again gently in its saucer. He waited for her to say something else, but she seemed to have lapsed into another of her silences. He sat there, staring straight ahead of him into the far corner of the room, biting his lower lip. That parrot! You know something? It had me completely fooled when I first saw it through the window from the street. I could have sworn it was alive. Alas, no longer. It's most terribly clever the way it's been done. It doesn't look in the least bit dead. Who did it? I did. You did? Of course. And have you met my little Basil as well? She nodded towards the docks and cuddled up so comfortably in front of the fire. Billy looked at it, and suddenly he realized that this animal had all the time been just as silent and motionless as the parrot.